Hello everyone, Linda Israel here, and I have a Recollections mixed media pad that I got from Michael's. I showed this in my shopping haul that I got from Michael's. The Michael's in Oklahoma City had 4 different varieties of this, and I bought 2 of them. So today I'm going to show you this one. It was sewed together across the top, so I've unpicked the stitching so it'd be easy to pull apart. So it has a piece of canvas in it that is printed. It has all these really cool different pieces of cardstock inside of it. Like this one would be great for journaling tags. Just some great pieces of paper in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a junk journal using these pieces and see how it comes together. There's a piece of burlap, another piece of canvas, a piece of corrugated. There's a plain piece of cardstock, and then a craft color piece of heavier cardstock on the back. So I'm going to cut these up and start getting them ready to be pages in a journal. So I guess they're calling this Frills because it has numbers on there and names. So I'm just going to cut off where it was sewn across the top. And then I want to cut these in pieces so that they can be used really well in the journal. So I'm going to cut these down to be like probably 7.5 on some of them maybe 6 inches. We'll just go back and forth until I get them all done. The paper stack has been cut up, so I've got all these pieces that I've cut. The maximum height that I've cut them is 7.5 inches, and then of course it was 12 by 12 paper, so it's 12 inches long. So I've got a little stack here that I'm going to work from. But I've also gone to my printer, and I have a piece of paper that's lined that I will print on both sides of my paper. And then I trimmed this down. It was 8.5 by 11, so I trimmed it down to be 7.5 inches tall. This was, again, 8.5 by 11, so it fit through my printer, but as you can see, it's a little bit short to be 12 inches, and I want this to be 12 inches long. So many of us probably have scraps of paper. These are all bits and pieces from other journals that I was working on in the past. And what I've done is I've gone through and trimmed them down to be 7.5 inches tall. And I'm just picking out a couple of them that I'm going to use. So I use the scrapbook paper that's 12 inches long. I've got some Aleene's tacky glue. So I'm going to get this lined up so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. And I'm just going to lay a bead of glue down this one edge. Just a small amount. Then I'm going to take this scrap piece of paper and line it up on the edge. I may move it back and forth just a little to kind of smear that glue around. Then I take my bone folder and kind of press it. What that does, that'll really smooth that glue out underneath there and help it go all the way to the edge. You can see it came out down here at the end. So there is this piece that's had a piece of paper added to it. Clean up my glue mess. So that's one side that has had the piece of paper adhered to it all the way down. I tried to be straight, but it may not be. It's handmade. So I line up my 12 by 12 piece of paper to the top of my 8.5 by or 7.5 by 11 piece. And then I actually have a smaller piece here, so I'm going to trim this real quick like. I changed my mind about that piece because it wasn't necessary for it to be that wide. So you can see that over here on this side, if I line this up and I lay it down, and this side is lined up, that will then make this piece right here that I'm working on 12 inches. So what I'm going to do now is lay a bead of glue down this side. Again, I'm just using the Aleene's tacky glue. Some people use tape. I find it gets expensive to use tape. The white glue works really well on paper. And if you just put a small amount, you don't need a lot, it won't buckle up your paper. So what I'm doing is I am lining it up with the top and trying to match it with this piece of paper up here so I have the right length. And then I'll use my bone folder to help smooth out that glue. And now I have a 12-inch piece of paper. It may be a little short, but it's pretty close to 12 inches right there. Now, on the back side, you have white pieces of paper showing. To fix that, I have some washi tape. So all I'm doing is taking this washi tape. I want this to be... For some reason, this one does not look straight to me. That's one thing about paper cutters. You can just trim what you need. So I've got a piece of washi tape that is a little bit wider than necessary on my gap here. And I just started a little bit off of the page and line it up as best as possible and go all the way across. And then I just trim it. So there's that side, and then the other side with the washi. And I'll do the same thing on the opposite side. I've got another piece of washi tape. I'm just going to run it across the edge here. This paper that I'm using is what I call text weight, copy weight paper. I bought a bunch of it years ago because I went into a paper store and they were clearancing it out, and I got it for $2 a ream, and it's linen paper. It's a green fleck, so it's got a real pretty color to it, but at the same time, not everybody likes green. So there's my washi. So what I found was I just get out my little spray box and I put my paper down in there. I've got some glimmer mist here. So let's see what we've got. I've got Curious by Tattered Angels, and I'm just going to spritz this side. And then I've got Precious Metal. It's kind of a pearl color. I thought that would go with the music notes on the other side. And it's okay if it splotches, if it drips, because all we're doing is adding a little bit of color to the page. I'm going to also use a little bit of pink that I have in my stash. Now, if I'm in a hurry, I will use my heat tool and dry this, but since I know my spray box has got a piece of paper on the bottom, it's okay that I can just flip that over. Since this side has more reds and pinks in it, I've got Red Chili by Tattered Angel. And I'm just going to mist it a couple of times with this on the back side. I'm going to dry this and then we'll move to the next step that I want to show you. I've got some rubber stamps here. This is just an old little swirly design. I believe it's from Close to My Heart. Old wood mounted stamp. And I'm just going to use this and stamp it with Distressed Ink Tumbled Glass by Tim Holtz. Just kind of make a couple of really light, faint colors. It may not pick up on the camera, but in person you just lightly see it. You know, it's just enough that if you were writing in this journal, it would be there so that you could write on it and it wouldn't get in the way. You wouldn't feel like, oh, I can't write there. There's the stamping. The next one is Victorian Velvet, and this is a little fleur that is from Vintage Flourish from Stampabilities. It is well used and well loved. You can tell by the colors on it. And I'm just inking that up. I'm not even going to ink it again. Just kind of get a light, softer look. And we'll do this on the other side as well. I think the Victorian Velvet kind of goes well with the red. So there is a writing page that can go in my journal that I made, and I can just crease this slightly to get it ready. I'll show you a couple other pages that I made. So here's one that had the kind of an orange color, and I have this little light bulb figure. That's an old stamp that is from Postmodern Design. They're no longer in business. They were friends of mine. And then this is reds. Here's some turquoisey blues. Reds and pinks. The page that I just worked on. Underneath there's one with a little stamp of the light bulb figure. So it's just to add color so that you're not staring at a blank sheet of paper. And I will have several of these that'll be pretty much where you see one of these pages, and then you'll flip over and then you'll have some writing pages. So I'm going to continue to make some more of these. I need 12 of them, or that's what I want, is 12 of them. So I'm going to put those together and then we will move on and I'll show you some other things that I can do. I've folded the papers in half to start the journal making process. I've added in the pages that I made with the washi tape and stamping and spraying with glimmer mists. I've even added in some really nice textured paper that is really heavy, and it's kind of a handmade paper. Kind of like a super nice watercolor paper, if you will. Some of the pages that I had left over scrap-wise, what I did was I took some washi tape and attached the top to the bottom and trimmed it to be 7.5 inches so that I would have full pages to add. I didn't want to just have a little narrow strip in the middle. I wanted to have a full page. And I thought this kind of gives it a neat effect on the page so that there's plenty of pretty on one side and then there's writing on the other, or writing space on the other. This is a piece of handmade paper that I made years ago. I used to make a lot of handmade paper. I don't make any here recently, but I hope to do it some more. I've been collecting scraps of paper, and it's got glitter in it and pieces of thread and whatnot. And so I've used a piece of that in here as well. Here's another piece of the paper that I pieced together. So it's two different types, but I think it goes well together because it's all from that mixed media pad. Here's one of the pages that was also pieced together as well. So now what I'm going to do is go through the signatures and add components into it, like tuck spots and little pockets and little journaling cards. I've got a set of calico collage images that I think kind of goes with this theme of adding a little bit of flowers and color. It's called Flowers for My Lady collage sheet. They are basically, I'll get a ruler out if I can find one that I've moved my rulers. Well, I'll have to tell you because this one's hard to see on camera. They are 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches in size. So they're basically artist trading card size, but they're perfect to have as journal spots. I printed this on cardstock. So I'm going to cut these out and we'll use these as journal spots or in my journal as well. In my stash, I have a whole slew of images. Years and years ago, before I ever got involved with calico collage, I would purchase digital images. I've probably got, I don't know, thousands upon thousands of digital images. And so one day, years ago, I sat down and just told it to print a proof sheet. And what I did, it printed these all in color, all of these great little images that are about 1 inch by 1.5 inches tall. And I save those because sometimes you need just a little something to add to a project. So I've gone through and I found an image that I liked. This is a scrap from a piece of book. I've got some old postage here. This was a piece that was cut off of some watercolor paper that I used in the journal. So I've just got these bits and pieces and I'm going to make basically a small tag with it. So I've got my distressed ink vintage photo and I'm just going to go around the edges of this book page piece. And I'm going to layer this all up and make a little tag. Or journal spot, or just pretty something that can be added into the journal. This is just a piece of scrap paper that was in my stash. I don't throw anything away unless it's just completely ruined and there's no way to salvage it whatsoever. I have a little bin that I put things in next to my desk, and when I have some time, or if maybe I'm in a funk and I just can't think creatively, I will sort the bin. And then I take these bits and pieces of paper and sort them into pockets. They're 12 by 12 pockets that will have different colors of paper. One will be for pinks, one will be for blues. And then when I want something in those colors, I just go to that bin. Now I have a whole container of findings, and I saw this little piece of findings, so I thought what I would do is attach this to my little card. I'm going to add a little color around it, and that will use some of the findings that I have in my stash as well. So I'm going to glue this down first, and then I'll use my awl and punch a hole, and then I've got little brads that I can place this on my project. So I'm just lining this up where I want it. I'll poke holes on either side. I usually like to make the holes just a little bit bigger. Got these little silver brads that come with the hardware kit. This is one of those things that I picked up when they were either on sale or clearance or something like that. So that's just a little quick tag that I can use in the journal. And I'm going to put it inside of a pocket that I learned from Pink Odd Bird. So this is the pocket that I'll put it in. And I'll show you really quickly how I made that pocket. Now she has instructions on her YouTube channel on how to make these little tuckalope. Basically, it's an envelope, it's a tuck spot, it's a pocket, whatever you want it to be. She says to make a true square. So I'm just going to cut this down to be 5 1/4 inch square. It's just a page that's torn out of an old book. And I'm just using my paper cutter. And then you fold up at a diagonal one side of this piece of paper. Then fold down the top. Then fold up the corner. And what I found is if you fold it even to the side, but try not to catch this corner piece, and then do the same with the other side. So now you have the beginnings here. You can then fold this back if you want. But what she was showing was when she was a kid, and I've seen these years and years ago, they would do this and it would become a cup that you could drink out of. What she did was she said this like that becomes, this one's been distressed, a pocket, or you can fold it over and it now becomes an envelope that you can put stuff in. So it's just a really quick little way to add a little another element to your journals. And so I've made a couple of these that I'm putting in my journal. And this is just a scrap of paper that I'm adding because I like the colors. I thought the colors went really well. So I'm just going to work on this journal and add some more pages, and I'll stop every once in a while and talk to you and show you what I'm adding in. I've got some tuck spots that I've made. These are from pages out of an old book. This was a die cut that I picked up recently. Then I've got some Prima flowers. I want to show you that these were Prima flowers that were just plain flowers, and I went in and just added a little bit of glitter glue. I use this tulip dimensional glitter glue because it's inexpensive. It's so cheap for this great big bottle. It goes a really long way. It has a small tip applicator. Let me open it. And so I'll just put just a little dot here and there on there, and it just gives it a little bit of sparkle. And at the same time that I've made this a dimensional thing, it's pretty flat, so it's not real thick. Kind of see that. So it'll be great to add in this journal just for a pop of color on this page here. Then I've got a little card that these were, I think this was either a photocopy of some paper dolls or something. It was in my stash. I just have these bits and pieces of paper that I've saved over the years. I've collected images. I've got all kinds of textured paper, all kinds of little things that I've collected. And so today what I'm doing is I'm growing through all those bits and pieces and finding a home for them inside this journal. And when I add a little tuck spot, what I'll do is this half circle area up here, I'll just add some glue to that area and then stick it down in my book. And then after it's dry, it'll be a perfect little tuck spot to add things. And at the same time, there's still room on this page to write. so it's not taking up a whole lot of space, but it's adding a little bit of texture and color without altering that page too much. This will be something that'll go on that page. I have another one of these book pages that I made. It's just a little pocket. You've probably seen me in other videos. This is a little one. I made it out of the scrap from the Portocalope from Pink Odd Bird. So this was just a little piece that was left over. So you can kind of see it's about the same size. And I just turned it and made a little pocket. So I'm going to put that right here in the corner, and then there's still plenty of room at the top. And then this is another one of those little images that I printed off of my computer. This is a scrap of paper that was in my stash. This is a scrap out of a book. And then this is just a scrap of cardstock that has been distressed just a little bit. It's got a little bit of gunk on the back, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it's part of the charm of a junk journal. Here's another piece of just cardstock, a torn page. This was an image off of a scrapbook paper. It had all these little images. Here's some of them that are left that were like postage stamp looking. And I just cut one off and stuck it on there. So this will be a tag that can go behind there. I won't put it in there yet because this isn't dry, but I'll just put it on that page so I'll know that I want it there. I've got another little tuck spot that I made out of just scraps. I just stacked a few scraps together, glued them, cut it, added some flowers. These are just stickers that I found in my stash. There's 12 of each design. And I just thought these would be kind of cool to add throughout. Kind of like a journal prompt, if you will. This is a bottle cap that I smashed. I have a whole box of these. These are postage stamps, and this is just a scrap piece of paper that I'm going to apply in the corner, and then it'll become a pocket. This is a scrap piece of cardstock that was folded into a card. I may not have liked the paper for whatever reason, and I just stuck it into my extras pile. So I've just added a couple pieces on here, and then this can be tucked in the back as another journal thing. This is a tag that I made years ago out of metal tape and a tag die and some small images and alcohol inks. And I just thought it would be pretty as a little charm in the book. And then an image or a piece can be stuck behind that ribbon. Maybe. Okay, it's time to cut the covers for this journal. I've already cut 2 pieces of chipboard. That'll be the front, and another one that'll be the back. But I need one for the spine, and I want the spine to be the same length. So I'm just using my paper cutter here, and I'll cut this to be the same. And then I've kind of measured out the spacing that I want for my signatures. So I'm just going to use my little template here, which will be right at 2 inches. So this is going to be a thick book because there's a lot of pages in it. Each signature has 10 sheets of paper. So that basically comes out to 40 pages per signature. So 40 plus 40 is 80, plus another 40 makes 120. So there's 120 pages in this journal. Now for my cover, what I've decided that I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of the canvas that was in this kit. I think that'll be great for the cover. So I know this will be on the front of the book. So we got a front. And then I got another piece of canvas here that's plain that I can also use. So I'm going to overlap these and adhere them to each other, and then my spine will be down the center of those, and then the pages or covers will go like this. So if I want to maximize this whole thing, I'll glue this part together and then I will position everything. So I'm just going to use tacky glue, white tacky glue, and go down the edge and glue this down. So I want my spine to be somewhat over to one side and to catch some of this front. I also noticed that there's a peacock on the front, but I think it's going to be mostly on my spine, but I want it to be on the book, so I'm trying to kind of position this in a way that there'll be strength in the hinge of the book, and then there's enough space that I can cover this chipboard. So I'm kind of get it positioning to the upper portion. So I'm going to use my tacky glue and glue down the chipboard pieces. Now I have chipboard because where I used to work for over 20 years, we had a print department, and in that department we did all the form feed printing, and each box had a piece of chipboard in the top and in the bottom, so 2 pieces, and they were throwing it away, and I was able to talk to some of my friends that worked in that department, and they saved the chipboard for me. I have a bunch of this chipboard, and I still have friends that work there, so if I start to run low, I could probably ask them to save some more. So if you have a friend that works in like IT, computer department, the print shop, you might ask if they will save what would be in the form feed box, the chipboard that comes in, because it works out really well for book binding and such things like this. You could also use a cereal box. Save cardboard from other projects or chipboard from other projects. You could tear apart an old book and use that as your spine for your book. And you can buy chipboard, but I don't buy it because I have a plethora of it. Now I leave a gap when I put my spine in so that the book can open and close. If you don't leave that gap, you won't have a nice front. It'll pucker and you'll have issues, so I always leave a little bit of a gap. So now I'll just trim off the excess fabric that I don't need. And then I'll just start folding these back and gluing them in place. So I like to fold in my corners when I'm doing a book. That protects that corner and keeps it nice and neat. I have some pretty scrapbook paper that I picked up at Tuesday morning that I think would be good for the insides. It's cardstock weight, so I'm just going to get out a couple of sheets, measure, and cut this for the spine of the insides of the book. I want some of this pretty flower on it, so I'm going to cut off the bottom. And this is going to be, if I remember correctly, seven and a quarter. Maybe a little bit over 7 and a quarter. We'll get the height. And then 6 and a half, I believe. A little over 6 and a half. For the width. So this will fit right on the inside and not interfere with the spine of the book. So I'll cut the other piece to go on the back, and then I'll find a piece for the center as well. Just to help with the strength of the spine of this book, I'm cutting a piece of this muslin that was, or canvas that was left over. It's a scrap anyway. Might as well use it here. So I'm just trimming it so that when I glue it down, it's going to be covering the spine of the book on the inside, and it'll just help with strengthening the book. If you have bookbinding tape, that would be ideal. I can't find the bookbinding tape that I wanted to use, so we're going to use this. Bookbinding tape already has adhesive on it, so it goes down easier. So now here's my template for punching holes in my book. So I'm going to have an exposed binding on mine. So I'm just going in and punching the holes where I want the needle to come through. I like to make a little guide to help me with that. I will measure the spine and take a piece of paper and then fold it in half, and then depending on how thick my signatures are, this one I did like a 1/2 inch from each one, so you can kind of see that there's lines, and then I will fold it in half the other way, and that'll be my center, and then I did about 1 1/4 inches from each end. So now I've got all these holes ready to go, and now I've got to punch holes in my signatures. You're probably wondering, what is this brown thing that is now on the screen? It's hard to see. There's a hole in the bottom here. This is a bookbinding cradle that my husband made for me per my specifications. I had looked at bookbinding cradles online. I could get a cardboard collapsible one, and it was rather expensive. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do a lot of bookbinding, I might as well have a nice one that will last for many, many years to come. so I gave him some specifications and said, could you make this for me? And this is what he made for me. So the idea is that you put your pages in your book cradle, and because they're already down in this V, they're ready to accept the awl. I put in my template down in there, and then just take an awl and punch the hole through all the pieces of paper. So now this has all the holes punched all the way through, and it's ready for me to do my sewing. I'm going to do that to all 3 signatures. And try not to make a mess, because I'm running out of space. Now you want to make sure that if you have signature pages that are shorter than others, that you get them all lined up the way that you want, so that when you bind it, those pages will be caught in the binding. So I've adjusted the pages where necessary. And I always make a template that fits my book from top to bottom measurement wise. That way I know that I've got everything lined up where I want it. Before I bind my pages in my book, and so it's easier to handle, I need to create my closure. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to use a button closure with an elastic hairband. So I'm using my template that I had for punching holes in my signatures as a guide. It has the measurements of what's going to be the center front of my cover, and I'm drawing a dot with a pen. I have my Home Pro LR setter, and I have the eyelet setter, the hole cut for basically a standard size hole punch, if you will. This just will allow me to punch through all these thick layers that are on here. So I'm just going to open this up and then punch all the way through. So now I have a hole that goes all the way through the cover of my journal. I'll clean out any of the loose fibers that might be in here. I'm just using a pair of scissors to clean that out. And to ensure that I put the hole on the back in the same spot, I'm just going to use that existing hole that I just made and a pen and draw inside there, and then I will line this back up into my Home Pro and punch a hole. So now again I will go through and clean out the hole, because the fabric will not always cut completely through, but that hole will be punched. So now I have a punched hole in the front and the back cover. Then I'm going to use a button with a shank. So I've got a plethora of antique buttons. So this one has a shank, and that's going to pop through that hole in the cover. And then I have one of these fancy spiral paper clips. You could also use a button clip if you have those. I couldn't find one, so I'm just going to use the spiral paper clip. And I'm just twisting that around so that it is on there, and that button is not going to come off of my journal. Okay, so for the back I need to put an eyelet. I'm going to take off the cutter portion that I have in my setter. I have to use pliers to get it to come apart. So this is the cutter portion, so I'm going to put it back. And this is the bottom portion that goes with it. So I'm going to put in the eyelet setting portion. So this is called a 6EB, and then I've got a 6ET that goes with it. And I'll pop this up into the mechanism. if I hold my mouth right. So now that is in my setter. Now, for this portion, you want to put the pretty side of your eyelet into the hole. So I'm popping that into the hole. It's going to be on the outside of my book. I'm placing it on my eyelet setter, and then I'm gently going to press down, kind of check it, make sure it's not splitting, and then all the way. So now that's set. So there's the inside and there's the outside. And I have a standard hairband here. And I'm just going to take this. I may need some help with some tools. So I'm going to use my stylus here. Kind of poke that through that hole here. And this is just a standard hair tie. Hair rubber band, if you will, that you can usually pick up at most stores that sell hair supplies. And of course, while I'm on video, I can't get it to poke through the hole, but we'll get there. Yay, I finally got it through. And I'm going to take another one of these fancy paper clips and just thread that on and pull it down. And this will become the closure for the journal. Like so. Alright, I'm going to clean this off and then we'll start the binding process. So I have waxed linen thread and a bookbinding needle. A bookbinding needle is a heavier gauged needle. It has a pretty good sized eye on it, and it's usually longer than average needles that you will see in the store. Sometimes you can find them online. If you can't find them in your store locally, you can go over to the yarn department, but you want to make sure that it's pretty long. This is almost, I think, 3 inches long. Get my, yeah, this one's 3 inches, 3 1/4, almost 3.5 inches long. So it's a really nice, and it's a heavy gauge needle, so it's not going to bend on you. Some needles are cheaper, and so when you're pulling through a chipboard, you don't want a cheap needle. You want to be able to push through there. So what I like to do is take my wax linen thread and cut 3 lengths of what my book is, and cut that free from the spool so I don't have to worry about the spool dancing around on my table. Then find the center of your signature. I like to start with my center signature first when I'm doing a big book binding, and I also like to start in the center of my book. Some people like to go from the outside in, but I go from the inside out. So what I'm doing is just, my pages got shifted because I forgot to put clips on them. Normally I clip them, and I forgot to do that today. So I'm trying to line them all back up and get the hole where I need to bookbind it. Alright, so I've got the first signature, going to start from the inside, looking at my book cover, making sure that I have it the right side up. I'm going to go in here. Some of my pages are falling out. Go through the center to the outside of the book. Pull it through. Go up to the top. Go through the top part of your book. I'm trying to do this so you can see. I leave a small tail on the inside, so I'm just pulling this up tight. Then I go back down through the center of the book again. I have a lot of pages here, a lot of thick pages, so sometimes you have to finesse it just a little. I'm just pulling it tight to make sure that there's not any slack. Otherwise your book pages will flop around and you will not be happy. And the wax linen thread, because of the wax, you can pull it tighter and you won't have to worry about it slipping back through because of the wax. It kind of gives it a little bit of grip. Sometimes you have to repunch your hole through your cover on fabric so you can see it. Then I come back up to the top, or the middle I mean, and then I catch this top thread, and pull down, and then I tie a square knot. And then I'll cut off the extra thread. Now this thread, I may come back after I'm done with the video and add a little decoration on there, but that's the center. It is now in the book, so you can see that that's now in it. So now I'll work on the other two signatures. So there's the book, bound with the closure, front and back. We'll go through it. So here's the inside cover and the first signature with tuck spot. This has 10 pages per signature. So when you count that up, that means there's 40 pieces, or 40 front, back. Lots of little tuck spots. I didn't put a bunch of pockets in this one like I have in some of my others, but mainly tuck spots. Lots of blank areas. Pages that I've covered with glimmer mist and some stamping and put washi tape or decorative paper on the edges. Little tuck spot there. Journal cards and tuck spots. Here's a little pocket. I've got a new punch, so it allows me to punch, looks like a ticket, continuous. And then I added this saying, which is from the Spring Peacock set: in order to be irreplaceable, one must always be different. And I just thought that was really cool. It has a couple of lines on the back because it was made from a scrap piece of paper that I had. Center of this one, I'll probably come in later and add some bits to that. A dictionary book pocket that I made with lots of tuck spots, so there's 4 spots in here. So if I take all of these out, there's one here, there's one here, there's one here, and there's one in the very back. Altered paper clip. This is a photo that I took years ago, and then I went in my computer and reprocessed it and made it kind of funky looking, and I just thought that just adds color and texture. It's another pocket that I made using the Pink Odd Bird technique of her Pertupkalope. This is a little tag I made to go inside. Just a scrap piece of paper on the back side. Another tuck spot with just some scrap bits of cool paper. This was one of those things that I had stamped, but I wasn't really sure about using it as a card, and I thought, well, this works out pretty good for a journal spot in the journal. This was a piece of the scrap when I was cutting the pages for this journal. Journal spot with some stamping. Another little tuck spot there. This was an image that I printed on my computer onto some kind of a not quite craft color cardstock. This was a stamp that I had stamped out, and it was in my stash that I was like, oh, I didn't like the way it turned out, but I ended up spraying it with Tattered Angels Glimmer Mists, so it gave it a whole new look, almost like an old photo. This is one of the Calico collage images from her, what's it called? Flowers for My Lady collage sheet. This is one of the journal pieces that comes from the mixed media kit that I use, the Frills kit that I picked up at Michael's. This is a scrap from the kit. This is another image that I printed out of my stash. This is the next signature. This is an image from a daily calendar that you flip off and tear the pages, and it's from Thomas Kincaid, and it's a little index card that I made a pocket and a tag, and then this was on the calendar as well. It says, I like to think of moments of quiet reflection as a form of prayer. Quietly, the wisdom and guidance of God begins to settle on my active mind. Thomas Kincaid. And that was on one of his calendars. I used to get a lot of those in the past because of my job. I'd have a calendar on my desk. Here's another just scrap on a index size piece of paper. Another tuck spot. Another calendar, and I just cut off the year. Would you believe it was from 1999? I've had this for a long time. And I just thought it was cool and just something different to stick in here and journal on. This is a sticker out of a sticker set that I had in my stash, which I don't see now, but I have a whole bunch of little stickers in it that you can use to set in your books or projects. This was a scrap that was in my stash that I had stamped for a sample just to see what it looked like. These are 3 different stamps that I stamped, and then I never did anything with it. I just cut it out and stuck it in there because I wasn't sure what to do with it. Well, I sprayed it with Tattered Angels Glimmer Mists and stuck it in there. This is from the Flowers for My Lady collage sheet from Calico Collage. This is just a scrap of piece of paper that I probably had left over from another project, but I thought it's pretty colors. From the mixed media kit. And on some of these pages you'll see washi tape going through them like this, and when you do, that means I took 2 sheets of paper in order to make them the 7.5 inch height. I taped them together. It's another scrap. This was a sticker that I put on here. Another tuck spot that I made. Another little envelope tuck spot pocket, and there's a pocket in the back as well, so I think yeah, so one behind, one in front, like that. This is like a little postcard, fake postcard. Another fake postcard. This was a greeting card blank that I had, and I just added some textured paper to it and then made a little tuck spot at the bottom. So I thought, well, that just gives you another spot to write. This was something in my stash that is postcard examples that you can use. Another one of the journal spots. This is a photocopy of a vintage greeting card, and I made a pocket. And behind it, I have a greeting card that I made years ago that's just blank on the inside, and then just a scrap piece of really pretty paper. This fell out earlier. This is a card that was in my stash from Valentine's Day a while back, and I just thought, well, it's kind of pretty. I'll stick it in there. These were in the pockets. This goes back here. So there's a pocket here that has pocket in the back. If I did this right. I may have glued it down too much. I guess I did. We'll do it this way. And this was a die cut. I just thought it was a pretty shape. Another tuck spot. Pocket. Another one of these tags. The most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. There's room on the back to write something. The card journal spot. These are one of those stickers I was talking about earlier. Another one of the images from Calico Collage. Another journal spot. This is another card piece that was in my stash that I just made a little collage and stuck it in there. Card from the kit. It's another one of the Calico Collage flowers for my lady. I used lots of washi tape throughout. This was just a scrap piece of paper that I added a little piece of washi, a piece of book page. The little images that you see throughout the book like this was just random images that I had in my stash. And so I've cut those up and used them. I've had them for a long time. Stamping and Glimmer Mist. This is a little band that I made. It's a necklace charm that I made years ago, but I hadn't done anything with it, so I thought I'd just stick that there and then stick a little card in it. So a bow on the other side. It's another one of the ladies from Calico Collage. Another tuck spot with random pieces of paper in it. This was a piece of scrap left over from another project that I glued on the edge in order to make this 12 inches long. There's a little tag I made showing the tuck spot. This is one of the stickers that I didn't peel the backing off, so if somebody wanted to, they could stick it down. This is rather risque. It's a photocopy of a postage stamp, a sticker, another little journaling tag, another embellished paper clip, and that is the back of the book. And I'll stamp this with my information on here. And then to close it, just pull that on. It stands up so you can see it's rather thick. The spine is 2 inches, but it's probably closer to 3 when you get out to the edges. Again, it has about 120 pages to add your take to. You can see the end of it that way as well. I hope you enjoyed seeing how this journal came out using the Frills Mixed Media Pack that I picked up at Michael's. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and if you're checking out the flip through video, go back and see the process video of how I made this journal. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I do not mind answering questions. That's what I do these videos for, is to help people, to inspire people. What would you do with this journal? Would you use it as a daily journal? Would you use it for a special occasion? What would you do with it? If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. I greatly appreciate all of you that subscribe to my channel. And of course, share it with your friends. Thanks so much for watching today. Check the description box for a link to my blog that'll show the list of the items that I used today. Have a fabulous day and keep on creating. Bye, everyone.